Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube page, David Galata, Book Dreamer. And today's installment is going to be about just that, books and dreaming. Now, you might wonder, what do they have to do with each other? Well, there are times when those of us who write will write about our dreams. Now, I have a dream journal. I like to keep track of some of them. Not all of them, certainly. I have a lot of lucid dreams, and it, sometimes it's hard for me to tell when I'm waking up if I'm awake or not, because I go through all the motions in my dreams. So it's a little strange, but there's a difference between putting your dreams in a journal and utilizing dreams for the arts. There is a subtle difference here. When it comes to dreams, dreams can be confusing, they can be out of sync, they can shift and morph halfway through the dream. Sometimes the symbolism is a little strange. Maybe it only means something to you and not to anybody else. That's the hazard with dreams. So if you want to just take a dream and write about it, well then by all means, write about it, but place that in a journal for your own use, because that's when it's going to be really, really beneficial to you. When it comes to writing based on dreams, there's some changes you have to make. The first thing you have to figure out is, what was the base idea of the dream? What was the base emotional state? What was the base theme? Now that you have a background, you have to bring in the characters. Now, some of these characters could come from dream, or some of them can be made up to interact with the dream. And that's all up to you. You need a plot line. You have a basis for the dream. You have your theme, you have your background, maybe even have a character or two, but now you need a plot line that is going to capture the reader's imagination. That's what you've got to do. That's the real magic trick, is finding a plot line that fits the dream. Unless, of course, your dream comes complete with a full plot line and a cast of characters. Now, that does happen sometimes. It's rare, but it does happen. And in that case, you have to make changes to move the story along in a way that'll be interesting for the readers. You can't just spout the dream from beginning to end. Like I said before, it will have meaning to you, but not necessarily to anyone else. So you've got to work for your readers. You have to make sure they're going to get as much, if not more, from that dream than you did. If your book is completely based on a dream, find ways of expanding it, ways of fleshing out bits that perhaps the dream didn't cover. If your dream is about an island, but all the action happened on one side of the island, perhaps it's time to maybe use your imagination, using the tone and theme of the dream to figure out what was happening on the other side of the island. Create a character that maybe will interact with your main character later on, and thus bring a broader sense of reality to the dream and fill in some of the blanks that a dream definitely leaves behind. Remember, your dreams are not there to tell you stories, but you can make stories from your dreams. You just have to be very mindful of the readers and what their experience is going to be. You have to process the dream. Really think about it. Plot it out. There may be favorite bits you have to put aside. There may be bits that you weren't really hot about, but they really help move the story along, and, focus on that a little bit. And again, you have to add things to make the dream more like a complete world. When dreaming, We're not thinking plot line. We're not thinking main character, antagonist, protagonist, nothing like that. We're not really thinking along those lines. We're just experiencing the dream. But when the dream is so amazing that you say, all right, I've got to write something based on this dream, then you have your work cut out for you. You have to make your timeline. The dream is a guideline, not a rule to be followed. If you're just following the dream, that belongs in your journal. You have to use it as a guide for the rest of what you're writing. Now, those little bits that you may have to put aside, they can come up later in short stories, novellas, poetry, whatever you want to do. So those favorite little bits that they don't really fit the plot of the novel you're writing based on the dream, but you really like that piece of the dream, make it a short story. Why not? Make it the basis of a novella if you really like it enough. And that way you can expand upon the book that you're writing based on the dream. And that's why whenever I write books based on dreams, I will say it's based on the dream. It is not the dream itself. It is based on the dream. Now, some books seem to follow the dream a little more closely than others. For example, Crew of Ganges. That book started a trilogy that pretty much adhered to the dream I had, even though I did have to add some characters here and there. And for that, I actually turned to a friend of mine, Alfred McCarthy, who is truly a fantastic person. He's a wonderful guy. He is very, very creative, and he's very good at writing as well. And I turned to him for help. And he created some characters for me that could be used to flesh out parts of the dream that weren't really fulfilled by the dream itself. There were areas that were a little more gray that I wanted to uncover, but I needed characters to do it. This allowed me to keep my main characters in the thick of it, and they remained true to the dream itself. And that was special. That was very, very special. In the meantime, I had these new characters that could explore other areas of the dream that I hadn't experienced and explain some things that maybe my main character knew about but had not experienced directly. And this helps the reader to explore that world, the world of Ganges, which is actually a giant spaceship, and to see and experience things that my main character hadn't, but that would explain certain things that happened later on in the dream. This way, the dream and the new characters work together to make the story more useful for the reader and more enjoyable. Now, when it comes to other dreams, Clockmaker, which is my fantasy book, is also based on dream, but not one dream. That one is based on 8 dreams. Those dreams are stitched together to form a narrative, almost like the backing vocals of a choir. And the main characters are able to step forward and sing with these backgrounds behind them. Placing them together was difficult to choose. A couple of them were nightmares. How do you string a couple of nightmares in with a couple of, nice dreams and a couple of really just strange dreams? And yet have it so that it flows as a story. And for that, the main characters come to your rescue. That is the big thing to always remember, is it's your characters that your readers fall in love with. Sometimes it's the setting, sometimes it's the plot, sometimes it's the main emotions and tone of your work, but I find that a lot of my readers focus so much on the characters They love them. They want to know more about them. And they become the way in which the readers can explore these dreams that I've put together. Some of those dreams were very subtle. Some of them were kind of lonely dreams that I was able to populate. And Clockmaker starts off that way. Starts off as a little guy named Clockmaker, and he was born knowing how to make clocks, born in his hearth, in his little house, in a little forest that surrounds the road, in capitals, the road. It is the only road in his world, and it goes on forever. And no one ever goes up the road, they always go down the road. He's never met his neighbors, and his neighbors live so far away as to make it so he can't see them. So that dream was very isolating. Now I had to bring something new to it. One of the things I added to it are people called the lamplighters, who light giant lanterns that hang from posts, excuse me, all along the road. I had to dress them. I had to make them seem that they fit this world. Some of them come and they light the lanterns. The next one comes by and they put out the lanterns, depending on whether it's morning or night. Then I had the roadmen. And these were characters who basically had a huge wagon, and they would exchange goods with whatever house they were stopping by. These helped to flesh out this world. The one thing in that dream that made it a little quirky were shadows that flitted in the forest. And so I've made a connection between one of those shadows and Clockmaker. So you can see how I'm putting everything together so that Clockmaker, the main character in the dream, and the road, which is the setting of the dream, now have new people to interact with that starts bringing a story together. The shadow threatens Clockmaker. He becomes so frightened that he eventually packs up what few belongings he's got and begs the roadmen to take him on as a passenger so that he can find a new home. Now he's interacting with several people and he's exploring that world in a way that I did not during the dream. It's okay. It's okay to expand upon a dream. You don't want to expand upon history, because then you're altering history, and if you alter history, you won't learn the lessons of it. You don't want to expand upon biography. Famous people are already famous people. Don't expand even further on that. But when it comes to your dreams, those are the visions that your mind made. And if they're not too personal, yeah, you can expand upon them. You can bring them together. You can stitch them together. Without it being a spoiler, Clockmaker eventually falls off the wagon so hard, he slams through the forest and pops out of the walls of his world and ends up in the next dream. Now he's trying to get home, and he has to go from dream to dream to dream in order to do the job. So now you have a way in which the dreams can be stitched together while you are writing a story about personal development and questioning the big questions of life, like why are we here? Is there anyone in charge of any of this? And what is the plan, if so? And figuring out your place in reality, even when that place has been removed from you. These are questions Clockmaker explores. And using these dreams brings us through a process that forces the main character to face himself. So dreams can be very, very useful in writing novels, but you have to treat them with respect, and you have to also make alterations for the sake of the reader. If all I had done was to write 8 little stories about 8 little dreams, who'd be interested in that? No one. It wouldn't be interesting unless maybe you were a psychologist who studied dream therapy, things like, oh yeah, I'm really into dreams and all that. That's great, but that's not a big audience. So you need to give people a story that they can relate to, even if the setting in which the story takes place is not something they can relate to. Then it becomes a challenge. Then it becomes exciting. Then it becomes new and different. So, book dreamer, yes, that is what I am. But you have to craft those dreams. You have to sculpt them and mold them so that the reader can enjoy them to the fullest. Hope you've enjoyed this little installation of David Gullotta, Book Dreamer, and I hope to see you again next week. In the meantime, happy reading, everyone. Take care.